My other clarifying question was for Mr. Lingram. You talked about the need for an overarching independent body. Can I be very clear? Are you talking about for ex-service organisations, or are you talking about the governance of DVA?
Commissioner, I'm not talking about ex-service organisations. They have a good body known as the ESORD. It does need some improvements in governance. There's no doubt about that. But I'm talking a larger picture, an enterprise picture, where the interdepartmental pressures between secretaries, where the ministerial pressures within government will not affect the recommendations made by that independent body. And I could use the example of whatever triggered the minister to make, the Veterans Affairs Minister to make his statement the other week. I think that illustrates what I'm talking about, his frustration at not being able to achieve what's promised in the Veteran Covenant. If that answers your question.
It does. So just then as a follow-up, do you have a personal view in relation to the Productivity Commission recommendation about the establishment of a Veteran Services Commission?
I must confess, Commissioner, that I haven't read every document. I'm just applying my knowledge in governance.
Okay. Now there are parallels, I think, to be drawn between what you've said.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's the only solution, but because no one person's suggestion is the only solution, but I think it's been recommended before and agreed to by the ex-service organisations in 2018 under Sir Angus Houston, I believe, and then when he moved out of the situation, it was rejected. And I feel that if it was true that the ex-service organisations represented the majority of living veterans today, we wouldn't have 4,000 to 5,000 organisations representing veterans. So I don't believe they can represent veterans of the current governance arrangements.
Okay, thank you. And my other comment, I guess, is probably more a comment than a question per se, but I guess just listening to your evidence today, it just seems so abundantly clear, if it wasn't already, that veterans who've served their nation face the challenge of not only complex legislation, but administrative processes that are impacted by current staffing levels, training and knowledge, culture, communication, IT systems, such that pretty much most people seem to need an advocate to be able to navigate the system. And not only that, the outcome depends on the quality of the relationship between the advocate and the delegate. There just seems to be something mismatched between service to your nation and what follows. And each of your opinions is that the demand on the system is going up.
Yes, Commissioner.
So as I say, I'll leave that as a comment reflecting what I've heard from you. Thank you.
Mr. Linger in particular, but perhaps the others may also want to comment on your suggestion of an overarching, I think you described as an independent body that governs the whole system, and then you mentioned enterprise. It is certainly something that must be looked at. And we're aware of and I'll probably get the name wrong, but there is a commission in the United States, an independent panel of experts that tables an annual report that passes judgment, if you like, on veteran affairs issues and entitlements and so on. And I understand it's an act of Congress, so it's the legislative piece that dictates that their annual report must be tabled as is and cannot be interfered with by any public servant. So that's just something in the background that we've certainly been made aware of. But Mr. Lingren, you mentioned that I'm guessing what you're talking about is a body that has visibility on the whole the whole enterprise, as you call it, enforces accountability, but broadly uses sort of private enterprise principles of making things work, such as the company directors programs that you mentioned. Could you just elaborate on that, on how that might look? And I know Commissioner Brown asked about it before, but I also want to clarify, you meant that it would also include looking at the ADF, not just DVA?
Yes, I do, Commissioner. In fact, we do in that suppressed report. Governance, good governance, occurs through systems and process and people being held accountable to achieve outcomes that are recommended. And I think the best way to illustrate that is that our fear is that the outcome of the Royal Commission will be excellent, but we won't have a governance structure able to implement the recommendations in a way that holds people accountable. If we're aware of the strengths and weaknesses of the public sector organisations, how they interact, and also the private sector, I think that the private sector has a method of operation has a better chance of getting those recommendations executed. I'll just collect my thoughts for a second. It's important, I think, that it is not governed by a ex-service organisation, or an ex-service organisation doesn't have a lead role in it, because they are a stakeholder in that whole organisation, and that it covers the life of a veteran from day one through to when they should deserve happiness for the rest of their life, veteran and a veteran family.
Thank you. Mr. Fordham, are there any issues?
No, thank you.